Welcome to the deep dive. Today we've got maybe the most fascinating stack of sources we've ever encountered. It's a week-long, super personalized self-review. Covers week 43 of 2024, but it's the sheer contrast in the goals that really grabbed us. We've got data from the really technical stuff like Python code contributions, right next to the deeply personal, like figuring out the best way to cook a soft-boiled egg.
Yeah, it's quite the mix.
So our mission here is to really analyze this detailed commitment to self-improvement. We want to find those, hidden feedback loops, the surprising connections that pop up when you treat your life less like just a journey and more like a meticulously documented system. This kind of holistic management, it's pretty rare. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what jumps out right away is that this documentation, it's not just tracking for tracking's sake. It's more like a living playbook for life. What do you say? We're not just looking at like wish lists here. These are measurable data points. They force almost immediate changes in behavior. I think the core insight we'll explore is how monitoring these micro habits, the things that seem kind of trivial, actually drives those big long-term gains in quality of life.
Okay, let's start where a lot of self-improvement starts. Health. Sleep target was 7 hours a day, the average recorded. 7.14 hours. Now, on paper, that looks like a win, right? Duration met, consistency seemed okay, especially later in the week. But is hitting that 7-hour mark really meaningful if the main goal is, restorative sleep? We kind of need to dig into why quantity might be hiding a quality problem here.
You're absolutely right to challenge that. That's just a surface one. The sources actually reveal a really critical anomaly.
Yep.
Fragmented sleep, often broken into 2, sometimes even 3 separate sessions during the night.
Wow, 3 sessions.
Yeah. And if sleep is constantly interrupted like that, the body, it really struggles to get into those crucial deep REM cycles. You need those for cognitive repair, for emotional regulation. It's the difference between just resting your body and actually properly restoring your brain.
Okay, so not just hours logged, but hours uninterrupted.
Exactly. And the learner here, they spotted this problem right away. They're using this feedback to look for better tracking methods, which brings up a fascinating point for all of us, really. Your tracking tool has to be smart enough to measure the metric that truly matters. If that fragmentation keeps happening, the 7-hour number becomes almost irrelevant to the real goal of long-term health.
That focus on data quality connects right to movement, too, thanks to a little disaster, the pedometer story. So the main device apparently died early in the week. Careless handling, it says. They switched to a backup, probably thinking, oh, great, less accurate data. But here's the twist. The replacement was actually more accurate, specifically because it didn't track steps when they were on, say, a motorcycle.
Right, which is a fantastic lesson in data cleanliness, completely unintended. The backup device basically removed noise from the data. And if we connect this back to the bigger activity goal, hitting 5,000 steps, the main reason for success wasn't about forcing exercise sessions. It was more organic movement tied to other motivations.
How do you mean organic?
Well, the physical synergy here is really interesting. The increased steps came mainly from extra gardening tasks, things like preparing soil, identifying new plants, just generally tending to the garden. So the data shows activity wasn't really forced. The body was just, responding to what the environment needed. The garden effectively became the gym manager, dictating the physical labor needed. And boom, higher step counts without needing that artificial motivation push.
That's neat. Okay, let's pivot to something fascinating, almost counterintuitive about intermittent fasting and timing. The listener tracked a super specific thing. Eating a late dinner around 11 p.m. led to a 1 kilogram weight gain the very next day.
That is incredibly granular self-awareness. Just pinpointing that one instance. It highlights how sensitive the body is, not just to what you eat, but when those digestive and metabolic processes kick in. Eating that late probably interferes with the body's natural overnight repair cycle. It's busy processing energy when it should be doing other things.
So, okay, late meal gets penalized. Tough lesson. But this tracker didn't just log the mistake. They immediately found the workaround, the loophole. How revolutionary is that idea? Just move to counteract the bad timing.
Precisely. That's the crucial counterpoint they found. Doing some physical activity, walking, gardening, even just a trip to the grocery store after that late dinner successfully counteracted the weight gain effect. That insight is gold, especially since the learner is moving away from strict IF towards a healthier 3-meal-a-day plan. The timing of movement relative to when you eat becomes really key. It shifts the focus from just avoiding food to actively managing energy expenditure, proactively.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the other diet notes, they show this continuous tweaking. not just cutting carbs, but switching to healthier ones like brown rice. And the ongoing challenge, it seems, is getting more vegetables and fruit in. But on the exercise side, we see these accidental benefits again. That increased gardening work, specifically the soil preparation mentioned, acted like an unexpected resistance workout. Big impact on muscle strengthening, especially hands and forearms.
And that detail about hand strengthening, it's critical. It really backs up the idea that functional movement, stuff you do in daily life, often provides more relevant fitness gains than isolated gym reps. Though it's good they also noted the caution about preventing overuse injuries. Shows a nice balance between pushing limits and respecting the body.
Okay, so we've seen the physical environment driving health metrics. If we look closer, we see these goals are all kind of interconnected, aren't they? Like a self-reinforcing loop. Gardening isn't just a hobby here. It's steps, it's muscle toning, and it's even intellectual data gathering all rolled into one.
Absolutely. The learner's got this ongoing observation study, right, focused on environmental factors, how they affect different plants.
Mm.
And what made the data richer this week wasn't just watching things grow naturally. It was the mix of drastic weather changes and the human intervention needed to protect the plants. So the physical act of gardening directly feeds the intellectual project of observations, like a little closed-loop research system.
And that physicality then drives the organizational goals, too. Let's look at decluttering, aiming for a minimalist lifestyle. The method is so simple, it's kind of brilliant. This micro habit. On the way to the kitchen, clear one item. Just one.
That method, I like to call it microdosing productivity. It's super effective. It completely bypasses that mental block of scheduling a huge cleanup session. Nobody wants to do that. But this small, consistent action led to really significant outcomes. Fixing long-standing issues like plumbing problems because they finally cleared the space around them, purging broken stuff, recycling hoarded materials. It's the steady accumulation of tiny intentional clearings that leads to big structural improvements in their living space.
And because they were doing more physical work outside, bringing in soil, moving tools, cleaning up debris, the indoor cleaning had to increase too, naturally. Mop and sweep frequency went up simply because the main physical activity, gardening, demanded that secondary cleanup inside. It really is this integrated system where one goal just sort of pulls the others along.
Yeah, it flows.
So we've set up this stable physical foundation. Now let's look at the mental toolkit. How is that creating the stability needed to actually execute this, well, pretty demanding schedule? The meditation habit was sporadic, mostly very short, like 1-minute sessions, often done just sitting or even while walking.
Wait, hold on. A 1-minute sit. That's barely enough time to settle down. Is that really meditation or is it just like a designated pause? How can such a minimal input lead to the reported output? A tranquil and composed demeanor all week. Seems like a stretch.
That's a fair challenge. But the source suggests that even that 1-minute pause, when it's consistently applied, acted like a sort of hard reset button, a deliberate moment of just being present. Maybe it prevented minor stresses from piling up. It sounds less about reaching some deep enlightenment state and more about just maintaining emotional balance in real time.
Okay, I can see that. And what's really fascinating here is the objective measure they found for this subjective feeling of tranquility. The source noted this composed mental state directly correlated with a cooler body temperature before bedtime, which raises a crucial question for you, the listener. How is your internal state showing up in measurable physical data? Physiologically, staying tranquil probably means their sympathetic nervous system. The fight or flight response was less activated during the day. That likely means lower levels of stress hormones like cortisol. So a calmer mind literally translates to a cooler body, verifiable with a simple thermometer.
That's pretty cool. The knowledge acquisition this week, that clearly supported the main goals too. The reading was focused on the 3 highs, guides on controlling blood pressure, blood sugar, fat levels. Understanding how diet and lifestyle cause these major health issues, well, that's the ultimate prevention, right? It drives the switch to healthier carbs, the focus on eating more vegetables.
Connects right back to the health goals.
And the practical learning was similarly focused on mastering consumption. The cooking goal was about learning fast, effective ways to prepare vegetables and refining skills for different egg recipes, soft-boiled, steamed, soupy. It's all about control over consumption, managed by becoming more self-sufficient in the kitchen.
Right. Now, turning to the digital side of things, the coding goal. This involves daily pull request contributions suggesting small fixes or additions to open source projects and what they call the TWIR stack. Python, Elixir, Erlang, Rust, and Ruby.
Whoa, hold on. 5 different languages in 1 week. Python, Elixir, Erlang, Rust, and Ruby. That sounds like a recipe for burnout, frankly.
Well, it does sound like a lot, but it highlights this really disciplined commitment to being multilingual, technologically speaking. It's not like they're juggling 5 huge, complex feature projects at once. The current focus seems to be on submitting trivial typo PRs, specifically related to pub sub projects, which caught their interest recently. So this tactic, it's almost like micro-dosing commitment again. It ensures daily practice, keeps them mentally engaged with different programming styles, but without the heavy lift of complex development. It's consistency over complexity, a really low-barrier way to stay familiar and involved with the wider open-source world.
Okay, that makes more sense. Consistency over complexity. And the engine that seems to keep this whole holistic plan running, the writing goal. Publishing 2 posts a day, writing freely every day, alternating between digital notes and analog methods like pen and paper, just keeping the thoughts flowing. So what does this all mean for the system overall?
That constant documentation, the writing, the reviewing, updating weekly progress, that's the real operating system here. It's not just a record, it's the mechanism that closes the feedback loop. The writing forces the learner to synthesize all this data, from the fragmented sleep, the pedometer surprise, the gardening synergy. This documentation provides the self-awareness they need to pivot weekly. It keeps the whole self-management plan dynamic and responsive.
So the writing is the glue.
Essentially, yes. Let's try to boil down the core lesson here for you, the listener. Disciplined self-review, when it's structured across these different domains, physical, mental, digital, doesn't just list what you did. It reveals specific and often really counterintuitive connections. Like we saw, movement after a late dinner cancels out the weight gain. Consistency in tiny meditation sessions leads to a measurable drop in body temperature. The real power isn't just in the individual metrics. It's in the structured, cross-reference documentation that lets you see those unexpected links in your own life.
It really does showcase continuous learning and adaptability across everything, from like tending a garden bed to contributing code on GitHub. It's a pretty compelling model for living intentionally.
Absolutely. And we've dug pretty deep into the impact of tracking high-tech metrics, sleep apps, digital pedometers, all that. But as we wrap up, maybe consider this final thought. We've seen the value of all this synthesized data, but what deeper insights might still be hiding in purely observational, low-tech efforts? What can you learn from the non-numerical stuff? Things mentioned here like maintaining the outdoor pond's ecosystem balance in fish keeping, or contemplating how to capture the best possible images from the microscope in photography. The most valuable data might not always be the number you log, but maybe the quiet, critical observation you simply document and reflect on later.
That's a great perspective to leave you with, that sometimes the quiet observations can speak louder than the hard metrics. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.